Every time you try to learn more about dog food, you somehow end up feeling worse about what you're currently feeding your dog. Welcome to The Dog Who Asked for More, a podcast for dog parents navigating the messy, complicated parts of life with dogs that no one really prepares you for. Each week, you'll hear honest, grounded conversations that help you better understand your dog, feel more confident in your choices, and strengthen the relationship you're building together. Dog food feels like it should be simple. You buy food, you feed your dog, they eat it. But for a lot of dog parents, it doesn't feel that simple at all. Because the more you start paying attention, the more questions start showing up. You read ingredients, you see opinions online, you hear warnings about certain brands. You hear people say raw is best, or fresh is best, or kibble is dangerous, or grain-free is the problem. And suddenly, feeding your dog doesn't feel like a routine anymore. It feels like a decision you might get wrong. I'm Em, a dog mom, former vet tech, dog trainer, and canine nutritionist who works with overwhelmed dog parents who love their dogs deeply but feel stuck, burned out, or unsure what their dog actually needs. And today we're looking at why dog food feels so confusing for so many people, where that confusion actually comes from, and why it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. I remember standing in a pet store years ago, staring at two bags of dog food that were both claimed to be the best. Both had beautiful packaging. Both had confident marketing. Both had ingredients that sounded impressive. And I remember thinking, how is a normal dog parent supposed to figure this out? Because the label was not helping me understand the food. It was helping the brand sell me the food. This is where a lot of the confusion begins. Dog food labels look like they should give you answers, but most of the time, the information on the bag is actually written for marketing, not for clarity. Words like premium, natural, holistic, human grade, ancestral. They sound meaningful, but they're not telling you what most dog parents actually want to know. Is this food going to support my dog? Instead, the industry often turns feeding into a debate. Kibble versus raw, fresh versus dry, grain-free versus grains, homemade versus commercial. And once you start hearing those arguments, feeding your dog can start to feel like a test you didn't study for. You're trying to make the best decision for your dog, but the information feels overwhelming and sometimes completely contradictory. What shifted for me over time was realizing something important. Most dog parents aren't confused because they aren't trying hard enough. They're confused because the system they're navigating was never designed to make things clear. Food companies market differently. Veterinary advice can vary. Online opinions are loud and confident. And suddenly, something that should feel routine starts to feel high stakes. I've worked with so many dog parents who say the same thing. I just want to feed my dog well. I don't want to mess this up. That fear, the fear of getting it wrong, is what makes feeding feel stressful. But feeding your dog was never supposed to feel like a moral test. The goal of feeding your dog isn't finding the perfect food. It's learning how your dog responds to the food that they're eating. Most dogs actually give us feedback about their food all the time. We just don't always realize what we're looking at. Sometimes it shows up in their energy. A dog that seems wired all the time, or the opposite, a dog that seems sluggish or tired. Sometimes it shows up in digestion, loose stool, sensitive stomachs, dogs who constantly seem uncomfortable after meals. And sometimes it shows up in skin and coat, itching, dull coats, chronic ear infections. Those patterns don't mean the food is the only factor, but they're often the first clue that something in the body isn't quite lining up the way that it should. And once you start noticing those patterns, feeding your dog starts to feel less like guessing and more like understanding. And once that pressure starts building, it usually shows up in everyday moments. For you, this might look like researching ingredient labels late into the night, trying to understand what everything means, switching foods because someone online said your current one is terrible, feeling guilty when you open a bag of kibble because someone told you that that was the wrong choice, wondering if the itching, the energy, or the digestion issues might be related to the food, or feeling like every new piece of information changes what you thought you understood. And that kind of pressure gets exhausting. Not because feeding your dog is impossible, but because there are so many voices telling you what you should be doing. Here's the question I want to leave you with. What would feeding your dog feel like if it didn't have to feel like a test that you were trying to pass? If dog food feels confusing, that doesn't mean you're uninformed. It means you're trying to care well for your dog inside an industry that often prioritizes marketing over clarity. Most dog parents are doing the best they can with the information they have, and learning how to understand food choices isn't about perfection. It's about gaining enough clarity that feeding your dog can feel steady again, not stressful. If nutrition has ever felt overwhelming, you're definitely not the only one. I talk about this topic more deeply in my YouTube nutrition series, where we can take a deeper look at the patterns our dog is showing us and what they mean, and how to start making sense of dog food choices. If dog food labels feel confusing or leave you wondering what actually matters, the Dog Food Label Decoder Quiz will help you understand what to look for and where to start. The link is in the episode description. So, be kind, spread joy, and remember, the goal isn't perfect food. It's understanding the dog in front of you.